Some bonds are written in starlight, others are carved in blood. The execution ground smelled of iron and frozen earth. Kira knelt in the snow, her wrists bound with silver chains that burned through her skin like molten shame. The crowd circled her in silence. Wolves who had once called her sister now watched with eyes empty of mercy. She had been accused of treason, of poisoning the Alpha King's intended mate, of wielding dark magic she never knew existed. All lies. But truth held no throne in the court of the broken. Above her, the executioner adjusted his grip on the blade. It gleamed silver beneath the winter moon, cold and absolute. Kira did not look away. She had learned long ago that dignity was the last thing they could not strip from her. Omega Kira of the Ashwood Pack, the herald's voice rang across the clearing. You have been found guilty of high treason against the crown. The sentence is death by moonblade. Do you have final words? She lifted her chin. I forgive you. The crowd shifted. Someone cursed. Another spat into the snow. The executioner raised the blade. Kira closed her eyes and thought of her mother, dead 3 winters past. She thought of the wildflowers that grew near the river where she used to sing. She thought of the life she might have lived if fate had chosen another path. The blade began its descent, and then light. A burst of silver fire erupted from Kira's chest, flooding the clearing with brilliance so fierce that wolves fell to their knees, shielding their eyes. The executioner stumbled backward, his weapon clattering into the snow. Kira gasped, her body arching as heat surged through her veins. The chains around her wrists shattered like glass. Her skin glowed with intricate markings, ancient symbols that twisted and curled across her arms, her collarbone, her throat, the mark of the Moon Mother, the prophecy made flesh. From the edge of the clearing, a voice cut through the chaos, low, commanding, edged with something that sounded almost like fear. Stop! King Aldrich stepped forward, his black cloak billowing behind him like wings of shadow. His silver eyes locked onto Kira, and for the first time since her trial began, she saw something other than cold judgment in his gaze. Recognition. He moved toward her slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal. The crowd parted without question. No one dared breathe. Kira struggled to her knees, trembling as the light around her flickered and faded. The marks remained, silver against her pale skin, pulsing faintly with each heartbeat. Aldrich knelt before her. Impossible, he whispered. What is this? Kira's voice cracked. What's happening to me? He reached out, his hand hovering just above her arm where the marks glowed brightest, his jaw clenched. You bear the Pathfinder's mark, he said quietly. The sign of the Moon Mother's chosen, the one destined to... He stopped himself, rising abruptly. His expression hardened into something unreadable. She cannot be executed, he announced to the assembly. By ancient law, one who bears the mark is untouchable. She will be confined to the northern tower until the council convenes. My king, the herald protested. She was convicted. The moon does not lie. Aldrich's voice held no room for argument, and neither do I. He turned back to Kira, his eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. This changes nothing between us, he said, low enough that only she could hear. You may be marked, but you are still guilty in my eyes. Then why spare me? Something flickered across his face, regret, perhaps, or doubt. Because destiny has plans that do not require my permission. He gestured to 2 guards. Take her to the tower. No one enters, no one leaves. As they lifted her from the snow, Kira looked back at the king. He stood alone in the clearing, surrounded by his wolves, yet utterly isolated. For a moment, just one heartbeat, their eyes met. And she saw it. The same mark that now adorned her skin glowed faintly beneath his collar, hidden from view but burning nonetheless. He bore it too. The tower door slammed shut behind her, and Kira collapsed against the stone wall, her mind reeling. The Moon Mother had marked them both. And somewhere in the frozen north, the wind began to howl. The northern tower tasted of abandonment and old prayers. Kira stood at the narrow window, her fingers tracing the cold stone as she watched snow fall over the kingdom that had condemned her. 3 days had passed since the execution ground. 3 days of silence broken only by the wind and the occasional scrape of a guard's boot beyond her door. The marks on her skin had not faded. They pulsed with gentle light whenever her heartbeat quickened, responding to fear or anger or the strange ache that filled her chest when she thought of Aldrich's eyes. She hated that ache. He had ordered her death. He had believed the lies without question, without mercy. And yet, when the mark appeared, something in his expression had shifted. Not love, not forgiveness, but recognition, as if he had been waiting for her all along. Kira pressed her forehead against the window. Below, the castle courtyard buzzed with movement. Wolves in ceremonial armor assembled in formation. Banners bearing the royal crest snapped in the wind. Something was happening. The door groaned open behind her. She spun, expecting a guard. Instead, Aldrich stood in the doorway, snow dusting his dark hair. He wore no crown, no formal regalia, just a simple tunic and cloak, his sword at his hip. He looked exhausted. "You shouldn't be here," Kira said, hating how her voice wavered. "Neither should you." He stepped inside, closing the door. The space between them felt charged, electric. "But the moon makes fools of us all." "Why did you come?" Aldrich moved to the window, standing beside her, but not touching. His jaw worked as he stared out at the snow. "There is an army approaching from the eastern ridge," he said quietly. "Rogues and mercenaries led by Victor Blackthorn. He seeks the throne, and he knows about your mark." Kira's blood ran cold. "How?" "Spies, traitors, it doesn't matter." Aldrich turned to face her, his silver eyes burning. "He believes that if he captures you, he can force the Moon Mother's blessing onto himself, rewrite destiny through blood magic." "Can he?" "No, but he will kill thousands trying." Silence settled between them, like frost. "You could have left me to die," Kira said. "Why protect me now?" Aldrich's expression fractured for just a moment, something raw and wounded flickering beneath his king's mask. "Because I was wrong." The admission hung in the air, fragile and impossibly heavy. "The poison," he continued, his voice rough. "It was not you. My own cousin confessed under interrogation 2 nights ago. She sought to frame you, to remove you from court before—" He stopped, his fists clenching. "Before what?" "Before I realized what you were to me." Kira's breath caught. Aldrich stepped closer, close enough that she could see the mark beneath his collar, twin to hers, glowing faintly in the dim light. "I rejected you before I even knew you," he said. "I sentenced you without trial, without question. I let fear rule me instead of wisdom. And now you're cursed with me." Bitterness edged her words. "No." His hand lifted, hovering near her face but not touching. "Now I am bound to the only person in this kingdom who has the power to save it. I don't know how. Neither do I. But we learn together, or we fall together." Outside, a horn sounded, deep and mournful. Aldrich's jaw tightened. "Victor's forces will reach the outer walls by dawn. I must lead the defense. Then go. Come with me." Kira stared at him. "I'm your prisoner. You were my prisoner. Now you are my pathfinder." He extended his hand. "And I am asking, not commanding, for your help." She looked at his hand, then at his face. The proud, cold king who had condemned her now stood before her, vulnerable and desperate. Waiting. Kira took his hand. The moment their skin touched, the marks on both their bodies flared bright. flooding the room with silver light. Images flooded Kira's mind. A great wolf standing before a throne of ice, a woman with moonlight hair, a blade forged in starfire. Aldrich gasped, his grip tightening. "Did you see?" "Yes." They stood together in the aftermath, breathing hard, their hands still clasped. "What does it mean?" Kira whispered. Aldrich's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her chest ache. "It means the moon has given us a weapon. Now we must learn to wield it." He released her hand, stepping back with visible effort. "Dress for battle. We leave within the hour." As he turned to go, Kira called out, "Aldrich." He paused in the doorway, glancing back. "Why did you really spare me?" For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. "Because losing you would have been worse than losing the kingdom." The door closed behind him. Kira stood alone in the tower, her hand still warm from his touch, her heart thundering against her ribs. Outside the wind howled, and in the distance war drums began to beat. The castle armory smelled of oil and old steel. Kira stood before a mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Gone was the simple dress of the condemned. In its place, leather armor reinforced with silver plates, boots that reached her knees, a cloak lined with white fur. A warrior's garb for a woman who had never held a sword. "You look ready for battle," a voice said from the doorway. Kira turned. A woman stepped into the light, tall, scarred, with eyes like amber and hair braided for war. She carried 2 daggers at her belt and wore the insignia of the king's guard. "I'm Lyra," the woman said. "Captain of the Northern Watch. The king sent me to prepare you." "Prepare me for what? I can't fight." "You don't need to." Lyra circled her, assessing. "You just need to survive. The mark makes you a target. Every rogue wolf in Victor's army will try to reach you." "Comforting." Lyra smiled, sharp and wolfish. "You survived an execution. You'll survive this." She handed Kira a small blade, simple, balanced, deadly. "Keep this close. If anyone gets through our lines, you aim for the throat. No hesitation, no mercy." Kira took the blade, its weight foreign in her palm. "Why are you helping me? I was convicted." "You were framed." Lyra's expression hardened. "I knew it from the beginning, but the king was blinded by grief and rage after his mate died. He needed someone to blame. So he chose me. He chose wrong, and now he's trying to make it right." Lyra moved to the window, gazing out at the marshalling troops below. "Aldrich is a good king, a hard king, but he carries ghosts that would break lesser wolves." She glanced back at Kira. "Maybe the moon sent you to help him lay them to rest." Before Kira could respond, horns sounded across the castle. Lyra's hand went to her sword. "They're here." They descended to the courtyard together, where chaos bloomed like fire. Wolves in battle formation, archers on the walls, siege engines being rolled into position. The air crackled with tension and adrenaline. Aldrich stood at the center, issuing commands with calm precision. When he saw Kira, something in his expression softened. He crossed to her, Lyra stepping aside with a knowing look. "Stay close to me," Aldrich said, "whatever happens." "I'm not a soldier." "No, you're something more valuable." His hand brushed her arm, fingertips grazing the mark beneath her sleeve. "Victor doesn't want the throne. He wants you. The prophecy speaks of a pathfinder who can rewrite pact bonds, heal ancient curses, unite the fractured clans. If he controls you, he controls everything." "Yes." Kira looked up at him. This king who had condemned her and now protected her, whose mark burned twin to her own. "What if I can't do it? What if I'm not what the prophecy claims?" Aldrich's thumb traced the line of her jaw, so gentle it made her breath catch. "Then we face the darkness together, and we do not kneel." The moment stretched between them, fragile and fierce. Then the first explosion shattered the outer wall. Wolves poured through the breach like a black tide, rogues with red eyes and foam at their jaws, mercenaries wielding enchanted blades, and at their center, a figure wreathed in shadow. Victor Blackthorn. Even from a distance, Kira could feel his power, ancient, corrupt, hungering. Aldrich's hand went to his sword. "To me!" he roared. "For the crown and the moon!" The courtyard erupted into chaos. Kira pressed against a pillar as battle raged around her. Wolves tore into each other, blood steaming on cold stone. Magic crackled through the air. Screams and howls merged into a symphony of violence. And through it all, Victor moved toward her with terrible purpose. Aldrich intercepted him, their blades clashing with a sound like thunder. They fought with savage grace, two alphas battling for dominance, for destiny, for her. Kira's mark began to burn. Heat flooded through her, and suddenly she could see, truly see. Lines of silver light connecting every wolf in the courtyard, bonds of pack and blood and loyalty. Some glowed bright, others flickered, corrupted. And Victor's threads were black as pitch, diseased and wrong. Without thinking, Kira reached out. The mark on her arm blazed, and power surged through her fingertips. She grabbed one of Victor's corrupted bonds and pulled. The rogue alpha screamed. His wolves faltered, confused as their connection to him wavered. Aldrich pressed his advantage, driving Victor back step by step. But the effort cost Kira. Her vision blurred, her legs buckled, strong arms caught her. "I have you," Aldrich murmured, holding her against his chest as battle raged. "I have you." Victor's forces retreated through the breach, dragging their wounded. The Alpha himself stood at the edge of ruin, his eyes fixed on Kira with something between hatred and hunger. "This isn't over, little Pathfinder," he called. "The moon chose you, but destiny can be rewritten in blood." Then he was gone, melting into shadow. Aldrich lifted Kira in his arms, carrying her toward the castle as his wolves secured the courtyard. "You saved us," he said quietly. "You changed the tide. I don't know what I did. You wielded the gift the moon gave you, and you will learn to master it." He carried her to a chamber, not the tower, but a room near his own. Soft furs, a fire burning low, windows overlooking the mountains. He laid her on the bed, his hand lingering against her cheek. "Rest. We have won this battle. But the war has only begun." Kira caught his wrist. "Why did you really reject me that first time? Before the trial? Before everything?" Aldrich's expression cracked, revealing the wound beneath. "Because I loved someone once, and when she died, I swore never to love again. It was easier to be cold, safer. And now? Now I realize that safety is just another name for cowardice." He pressed his forehead to hers, their marks pulsing in harmony. "Sleep, Pathfinder. Tomorrow we begin your training." As he turned to leave, Kira whispered into the firelit dark, "Thank you for seeing me." Aldrich paused at the door, his silhouette framed by torchlight. "Thank you for not giving up on a king who did not deserve mercy." The door closed, and now I invite you to leave a trace of your presence in the comments. Tell us where in the world you're watching from, and the exact hour you hear this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel, and at what moments of the night they find you. Dawn broke over the mountains like a wound, red and raw and beautiful. Kira woke to find Lyra sitting by her window, sharpening a blade with rhythmic precision. "You snore," the captain said without looking up. "I don't. Like a bear in hibernation," Lyra grinned. "The king has requested your presence in the moon chamber. Training begins at midday." Kira sat up, her body aching from yesterday's battle. The mark on her skin had dimmed to a soft glow, no longer painful, but ever present. "What's the moon chamber?" where Pathfinders learn to channel their gifts. It's been sealed for 3 generations, since the last one died. Lyra's expression grew somber. She went mad, tore her own pack bonds until her mind shattered. That's supposed to encourage me? No, it's supposed to make you cautious. Lyra stood, offering her hand. Power without wisdom is just another form of poison. The king will teach you control. They walked through corridors Kira had never seen, deeper into the castle's heart, where stone grew older and magic hummed beneath the surface. Guards bowed as they passed, their eyes lingering on her mark with mixtures of awe and fear. The moon chamber stood behind silver doors engraved with celestial symbols. Lyra pushed them open, revealing a circular room with a domed ceiling painted like the night sky. In the center, a pool of water reflected starlight that had no earthly source. Aldrich stood beside the pool, dressed simply in training leathers. When he saw Kira, something in his stern expression softened. "Leave us," he told Lyra. The captain bowed and withdrew, the doors sealing shut with a soft click. Kira and Aldrich stood alone in the chamber, the only sound the gentle lap of water against stone. "This place feels alive," Kira whispered. "It is." Aldrich gestured to the pool. "The Moon Mother's tears, according to legend. They show us what we need to see, not always what we want." He extended his hand. "Come." She crossed to him, their fingers intertwining with a familiarity that should have felt strange, but didn't. The moment they touched, both marks flared gently, responding to each other like twin flames. "The bond between us," Aldrich said quietly, "is more than prophecy. It's power. When a Pathfinder and their alpha join forces, they can reshape reality itself, heal corruption, strengthen loyalty, even break ancient curses. But it requires trust. Yes." His thumb traced circles on her palm, "which is why I must ask your forgiveness before we go further." Kira met his eyes. "For what?" "For all of it. For believing lies. For sentencing you without mercy. For being too broken to see the gift the moon was offering me." His voice cracked, the king's mask slipping to reveal the man beneath, scarred, grieving, desperately trying to be worthy. "I thought coldness made me strong," he continued. "But it only made me cruel. You deserved better. You deserved to be seen," Kira finished softly. "And now I am." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them until she could feel his breath against her skin. "I forgive you, Aldrich, not because you've earned it, but because carrying that weight will break us both." He exhaled shakily, his forehead coming to rest against hers. "You are extraordinary," he whispered, "and I am terrified of failing you again." "Then don't." For a long moment, they stood together in the starlit chamber, two broken souls learning how to be whole. Finally, Aldrich stepped back, composing himself. "We begin. Focus on the pool." Kira knelt beside the water, her reflection stared back, but wrong. The woman in the water had eyes like silver moons and hair that moved with phantom wind. "That's not me." "It's who you're becoming. Look deeper." She stared into the pool, and the reflection shifted. Suddenly she saw Victor's army, massive and growing, fed by dark magic and corrupted bonds. She saw villages burning, wolves slaughtered, children fleeing into winter forests. And at the center of it all, a throne made of bones, and Victor seated upon it, wearing a crown forged from her own captured power. Kira gasped, pulling back. Aldrich caught her shoulders. "Breathe. It's a possible future, not an inevitable one. He's going to destroy everything. Not if we stop him. That's why you're here, to learn how to wield the gift without being consumed by it." He guided her hand back to the water. "Try again. This time don't just observe. Connect." Kira touched the surface, and power surged up her arm. She could feel every wolf in the castle, their fears, their hopes, their bonds to each other like threads of light. She found Lyra's thread, strong and fierce, found the young guard who missed his mother, found the cook who mourned her mate. And she found Aldrich's thread, blazing bright, tethered to her own with a strength that made her gasp. "We're connected," she breathed. "We always have been. The moon knew before we did." Kira pulled her hand from the water, trembling. "I can feel too much. How do I control it?" "You don't control power. You channel it, direct it. Let it flow through you like water, not dam it up like stone." He knelt beside her, his hand covering hers. "Together," he said. "Show me what you see." She took his hand, and their marks synchronized. The chamber flooded with silver light as their combined vision expanded beyond the castle, beyond the kingdom, to the very edges of the known world. They saw packs scattered and broken, saw ancient magic sleeping beneath mountains, saw a future where wolves united under a single banner or fell into endless war. And they saw themselves standing together on a battlefield soaked in starlight and blood, facing a choice that would reshape everything. When the vision faded, they sat together on the cold stone, breathless and shaken. "What was that?" Kira whispered. "Destiny asking us a question." "What question?" Aldrich turned to face her, his silver eyes burning with intensity. "Whether we have the courage to choose love over duty, unity over tradition, each other over the thrones we were born to carry. And if we choose wrong, then Victor wins, and the moon's light goes out forever." Silence settled between them like snow. Finally, Kira spoke. "Teach me everything. I want to fight. I want to be strong enough to stand beside you." Aldrich's hand cupped her face, his touch impossibly gentle. "You already are. You just don't know it yet." He stood, offering his hand. "Come, we have much work to do before the next attack." As they left the moon chamber together, their marks glowing softly in the starlit dark, neither noticed the shadow watching from the rafters above, a spy with Victor's emblem burned into his palm, already fleeing to report what he had seen. The Pathfinder was awakening, and war was coming faster than anyone knew. 3 weeks passed like winter breathing. Kira trained every day in the moon chamber, learning to channel her gift without drowning in it. She could now sense pack bonds within 100 yards, identify corrupted threads, even strengthen loyalty between wolves who had grown distant. But the cost was steep. Each time she used her power, exhaustion clawed at her. Aldrich would find her collapsed by the pool, trembling and hollow-eyed, and carry her to her chambers without a word. He would sit beside her bed until she slept, his hand wrapped around hers, their marks pulsing in gentle synchrony. They did not speak of the growing bond between them. They did not name the way his touch made her breath catch or how her absence made his chest ache. They were king and pathfinder, bound by prophecy and necessity. Nothing more, everything more. "You're distracted," Lyra said, blocking Kira's strike with casual ease. They sparred in the training yard, surrounded by watching guards. Kira had insisted on learning combat. If she was to stand beside Aldrich in battle, she would not be defenseless. "I'm tired." "You're thinking about him." Lyra grinned. "Don't look so shocked. The entire castle sees it." Kira lowered her practice blade. "Sees what?" "The way he looks at you. Like you're the moon and he's been walking in darkness his whole life." Heat flooded Kira's cheeks. "It's not like that." "No?" Lyra circled her, eyes sharp. "Then why does he train you personally? Why does he carry you to bed when you collapse? Why does he stand outside your door at night, listening to make sure you're breathing?" "He doesn't." "He does. I've seen him." Kira's heart hammered against her ribs. Before she could respond, shouts erupted from the castle gates. A rider thundered into the courtyard, his horse lathered and wild-eyed. The man practically fell from the saddle, blood streaming from a wound on his shoulder. "The eastern villages, he gasped. "Victor's forces. They're slaughtering everyone, taking prisoners. They're looking for—" His eyes found Kira. "They're looking for her." Aldrich appeared from the castle, moving with lethal purpose. He caught the messenger before he collapsed. "How many?" 200 wolves, maybe more. They're moving fast, burning everything." Aldrich's jaw clenched. He looked at Lyra. "Assemble the king's guard. We ride within the hour." Then his eyes found Kira. "Come with me." He didn't wait for an answer, striding toward the castle. Kira followed, her pulse racing. They entered his private chambers, a room she'd never seen, sparse but elegant, with maps covering every surface and a sword rack holding blades from a dozen kingdoms. Aldrich moved to his desk, pulling out a leather case. "If I leave you here, Victor will send assassins. If I take you with me, you become a target on the battlefield." He opened the case, revealing a pendant, silver shaped like a crescent moon, humming with ancient magic. "This was my mother's. It will shield you from detection, hide your mark, mask your scent. Wear it, and even Victor's seers won't be able to find you." He crossed to her, fastening the chain around her neck. His fingers lingered against her skin, warm and careful. "You're staying here," he said quietly. "Under guard. Safe." "No." His eyes snapped to hers. "Kira. You need me. Those villages. The people are terrified. Their bonds are breaking. I can feel them from here." She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palm. "I can help them. I can heal what Victor has corrupted. And if you die in the process, then I die trying to save your people, our people." Aldrich's control fractured. He grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. "I cannot lose you. Do you understand? I cannot—" "You won't. You don't know that. Neither do you." They stood locked together, breathing hard, the air between them charged with everything they refused to say. Finally, Aldrich's forehead dropped to hers. "You are the most stubborn, reckless, extraordinary woman I have ever met. And you are the most pig-headed, overprotective, beautiful king I will ever know." His breath caught. Beautiful? Infuriatingly so. A sound escaped him, half laugh, half sob, his arms wrapped around her, pulling her close. And for a moment they simply held each other as the world prepared for war. "If you come," he murmured into her hair, "you stay beside me. Always. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his hand cupping her face. "When this is over, don't." She pressed her fingers to his lips. "Don't make promises neither of us can keep. Just survive with me." Aldrich kissed her fingertips, his eyes burning with intensity. "I will protect you with everything I am. And I will protect you with everything I'm becoming." The moment stretched between them, fragile and fierce and perfect. Then Lyra's voice echoed from the courtyard. "My king! We're ready!" Aldrich took Kira's hand, their marks flaring in response. Together. Together. They descended to the courtyard where 100 wolves waited, warriors hardened by battle, loyal to their king, and now, whether they knew it or not, bound to their pathfinder. Kira climbed onto the horse Aldrich led to her, settling into the saddle with newfound confidence. He mounted beside her, his silver eyes scanning his assembled forces. "We ride for the eastern villages," he called out. "We ride to protect the innocent. We ride to show Victor Blackthorn that this kingdom does not bow to fear." The wolves howled their approval. Aldrich's hand found Kira's one last time. "Stay close. Always." They rode out together as the sun bled red across the horizon, heading towards smoke and screams and the promise of blood. And in the darkness beyond the kingdom's borders, Victor smiled. The Pathfinder had left her sanctuary. Now the real hunt could begin. The eastern village of Thornmere burned like a prayer offered to angry gods. Kira pulled her horse to a stop at the ridge overlooking the carnage. Bodies littered the streets, wolves and humans both, cut down without mercy. Buildings smoldered. Their roofs collapsed into ash. The air tasted of copper and smoke. But worst of all were the survivors. They huddled in the village center, bound with silver chains, their eyes hollow with terror. Victor's wolves circled them like predators playing with prey, waiting for orders. Aldrich's hand shot out, gripping Kira's reins. "Wait, it's a trap." I know. She could feel it. The wrongness in the air, the corrupted bonds Victor had woven like poison through the village. But those people will die if we don't act. Lyra rode up beside them, her expression grim. 200 hostiles, maybe more. They're dug in deep. A frontal assault will cost us half our forces. Aldrich's jaw worked as he calculated odds, strategies, acceptable losses. Kira touched his arm. "Let me try something." "No, absolutely not. Just listen. I can feel their pack bonds. Victor's wolves. Most of them are corrupted, forced into submission through dark magic. If I can sever those bonds, even temporarily, you'll expose yourself. Victor will sense you the moment you channel that much power." "Good. Let him come." Aldrich turned to her, his eyes blazing. "You want to use yourself as bait?" "I want to save those people. And if Victor wants me badly enough to break formation, your warriors can strike. It's suicide. It's strategy." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Trust me. Trust what we've built together." Aldrich stared at her for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he turned to Lyra. "Position archers on the ridge. The moment Victor's forces break formation, we strike hard and fast." Lyra grinned. "About time we got reckless." She rode off, shouting orders. Within minutes, Aldrich's forces spread across the ridge like silent shadows, bows drawn, waiting. Aldrich dismounted, helping Kira down. His hands lingered on her waist. "If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I want you to know." Kira kissed him, not gently, not carefully, but with all the fear and hope and desperate love she'd been holding back since the execution ground. Aldrich froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed her back with a hunger that stole her breath. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, as if he could somehow fuse them together and keep her safe through sheer will. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aldrich rested his forehead against hers. "Come back to me. Only if you promise to be waiting." She stepped back, removing the protective pendant he'd given her. The moment it left her skin, her mark blazed bright, visible even through her armor. In the village below, Victor's head snapped up. Kira walked to the ridge's edge, standing in full view, and raised her hands. "Victor Blackthorn." Her voice carried across the burning village. "You want the Pathfinder? Here I am." For a moment, nothing moved. Then Victor emerged from the largest building, his corrupt power rolling off him like smoke. He was tall, scarred, with eyes like black pits and a smile that promised suffering. "Little Pathfinder," he called up. "How generous of you to deliver yourself." "I'm offering a trade. These villagers for me. Let them go, and I'll come willingly." Victor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Why would I trade when I can simply take?" He gestured, and his wolves surged forward, charging up the ridge. Kira didn't move. Instead, she closed her eyes and reached deep into the well of power the moon had given her. She found the threads connecting Victor's wolves, black and diseased, forcing submission through pain, and she grabbed every single one. The mark on her arm erupted in silver fire. Power flooded through her like a river breaking its dam. She could feel every wolf in Victor's army, every corrupted bond, every fragment of will trying to break free. She pulled. The effect was instantaneous. Half of Victor's forces collapsed, screaming, as their bonds to him snapped like rotten rope. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Some wolves fled. Others turned on each other, no longer sure who they served. Aldrich's voice rang out. "Now!" Arrows darkened the sky. Aldrich's warriors poured down the ridge, crashing into Victor's disorganized forces with devastating precision. But the cost was immediate. Kira fell to her knees, blood streaming from her nose. Using that much power all at once was like trying to hold back an avalanche with bare hands. Her vision blurred. Her mark burned so hot she thought her skin might peel away. Through the chaos, Victor strode toward her, untouched by the battle raging around him. "Impressive," he said, his voice calm despite the carnage. But power without control is just another form of weakness. He reached out, and dark magic coiled around Kira like serpents. She tried to fight, but exhaustion had hollowed her out. Then Aldrich was there. He crashed into Victor with the force of a storm, their magic colliding with a sound like thunder. They fought with savage intensity. King versus pretender, light versus shadow, everything balanced on the edge of a blade. Kira struggled to her feet, trying to help, but her legs wouldn't hold. Lyra appeared beside her, supporting her weight. "Let the king handle Victor. We need to get you out of here." "No, I can still." "You've done enough. Look." Kira looked. The village was being reclaimed. Aldrich's wolves moved with coordinated precision, freeing the hostages, extinguishing fires. The wolves she'd freed from Victor's control fought alongside them, rediscovering their own will. She had turned the tide, but Victor was not finished. He drove Aldrich back with a blast of dark magic, then turned to Kira with a smile that made her blood freeze. "If I cannot have you willingly, I'll take you broken." He raised his hand, gathering power for a killing blow. Kira felt it coming, death shaped like shadow and hunger. She closed her eyes and reached for the only thing she had left. The bond with Aldrich. Their marks flared simultaneously, connecting them across the battlefield. Power surged between them, not just hers, not just his, but something new. Something forged in trust and sacrifice, and a love neither dared to name. Together they struck. Silver fire erupted from Kira's hands, amplified by Aldrich's raw strength. It slammed into Victor's attack, shattering it like glass. The force of the collision sent shockwaves across the battlefield. When the light cleared, Victor stood swaying, blood trickling from his ears. "This isn't over," he snarled. Then he vanished into shadow, his remaining forces fleeing after him. Aldrich ran to Kira, catching her as she collapsed. "I've got you. I've got you." She looked up at him, managing a weak smile. "We did it. You did it. You saved them all." Around them, freed wolves and grateful villagers began to gather, staring at Kira with something like reverence. Aldrich lifted her in his arms, holding her close. "Take her to the healers," Lyra ordered, already organizing the aftermath. As Aldrich carried Kira toward the medical tent, she whispered against his chest. "I would do it again, all of it." "I know. That's what terrifies me. Like if you believe rejection can become destiny." Kira woke to candlelight and the scent of mountain herbs. She lay in an unfamiliar room, larger than her tower prison, smaller than Aldrich's chambers. Soft furs covered her, and through the window she could see snow falling gently over the castle. Her body ached like she'd been pulled apart and reassembled wrong. "You're awake." Aldrich sat beside her bed, still wearing his battle-stained armor. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "How long?" Kira's voice came out rough. 3 days. The healer said you burned through power reserves that would have killed anyone else." His hand found hers, gripping tight. "You stopped breathing twice. I thought—" His voice broke. Kira squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar pulse of their connected marks. "I'm still here." Barely. Anger and fear warred in his expression. "What you did at Thornmere, severing that many bonds simultaneously, it should have killed you. But it didn't. That's not the point. Then what is? Aldrich stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His shoulders were rigid, his control visibly fraying. The point is that I cannot keep watching you sacrifice yourself. I cannot keep pulling you back from the edge of death while pretending this is sustainable. Then what do you want me to do? Hide while your people suffer? Let Victor? I want you to choose me. The words burst from him, raw and desperate. Not the kingdom, not the prophecy, not destiny. Me, choose me, and let the rest burn if it must. Silence crashed between them. Kira pushed herself upright despite her body's protests. You don't mean that. Don't I? Aldrich turned to face her, and the naked emotion in his eyes made her breath catch. I have been a king since I was 17 years old. I have carried this kingdom on my shoulders through war and famine and loss. I have sacrificed everything, my youth, my freedom, my heart, for the greater good. He crossed to her, kneeling beside the bed. But I am so tired of choosing duty over the only thing that has ever made me feel human. Kira cupped his face, her thumb brushing away a tear he didn't seem to know he'd shed. What are we doing, Aldrich? Falling, he whispered. And I don't know how to stop. Do you want to? No. Moon, help me. No. He leaned into her touch, his eyes closing. I thought I could keep you at a distance. Protect my heart by never fully opening it. But you've undone every defense I spent years building. Good. Kira's voice shook. Because you've done the same to me. Aldrich's eyes opened, silver and fierce. Then what do? We stop pretending. We stop hiding behind duty and prophecy and fear. And if choosing each other means failing the kingdom, then we find a way to save both. Together. Aldrich surged forward, capturing her lips in a kiss that tasted of desperation and hope and promises neither dared to speak. Kira kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and fury and impossible love she'd been holding back since the execution ground. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Aldrich rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said simply. I have probably loved you since the moment you forgave me for condemning you, and I am terrified that love will destroy us both. I love you too, Kira whispered, and I'm not afraid anymore. You should be. Why? Because Victor knows. He saw what we did at Thornmere, the combined power of our bond. He will come for us with everything he has. Then we face him together. Kira. She silenced him with another kiss, gentler this time. No more arguments. No more pushing me away to keep me safe. We are stronger together than we could ever be apart. Aldrich's arms wrapped around her, holding her close. When did you become so wise? Sometime between being executed and saving your kingdom. He laughed, a real laugh, free and genuine. The moment broke when Lyra burst through the door, not bothering to knock. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. Aldrich stood, immediately shifting into command mode. What kind of problem? The council has convened. They're demanding to know why the king is harboring a convicted traitor. Lyra's expression darkened. Lord Gregor is leading the charge. He wants Kira returned to prison pending a new trial. Over my dead body. He's counting on that. Half the council believes you're being influenced by dark magic, that the mark is corrupting your judgment. Aldrich's jaw clenched. Summon the council. Now. Aldrich, wait. Kira grabbed his arm. Let me speak to them. Absolutely not. They need to hear from me, to see what I am, what we are together. They'll try to separate us. Then we show them they can't. Lyra looked between them, understanding dawning. You're bonded, truly bonded. Yes, Aldrich said quietly. Lyra grinned. About damn time. Come on, let's go show those pompous counselors what real power looks like. The council chambers were exactly as Kira remembered. Cold stone, high ceilings, and wolves who saw her as a threat. Lord Gregor stood at the center, flanked by a dozen counselors. He was old, scarred, with eyes like chips of ice. "So the traitor returns," he said as Kira entered beside Aldrich. "Under guard. I hope." "She stands as my equal," Aldrich replied calmly, "as my pathfinder and as my chosen mate." Gasps rippled through the chamber. Gregor's expression twisted with fury. "You would bind yourself to a convicted criminal? Have you lost your mind?" "I have found it." Aldrich's voice carried absolute authority. "Kira was framed. My own cousin confessed. The trial was a sham built on lies and fear. Then why not simply pardon her? Why claim her as mate?" "Because the moon chose her for me long before I had the wisdom to see it." Kira stepped forward, her mark glowing softly. "I understand your fear, Lord Gregor. You've spent your life serving this kingdom, protecting it from threats. And I appeared as an unknown variable, powerful, unmarked, dangerous." She pulled back her sleeve, revealing the full extent of her mark. "But I am not your enemy. I am the bridge between broken pacts, the healer of corrupted bonds, the light that will guide us through the darkness Victor brings." "Pretty words," Gregor sneered, "but words don't win wars." "No, this does." Kira reached out with her power, gently touching the pack bonds in the room. She didn't manipulate or force. She simply showed them what she could feel: the loyalty, the fear, the hope, the love that connected every wolf in the castle. And she showed them the corruption creeping in from the east, Victor's influence spreading like disease, turning pack against pack, brother against brother. When she released them, several counselors were weeping. "That is what we face," Kira said quietly. "Not me, not Aldrich, but a force that will consume us all unless we stand united." Gregor stared at her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he knelt. "Pathfinder, forgive an old wolf his suspicion." One by one, the other counselors followed. Aldrich's hand found Kira's, their fingers intertwining. "Rise," he commanded. "All of you. We have a kingdom to defend, and I will need every one of you when Victor makes his final move." As the council filed out, Gregor paused beside Kira. "Your mother would be proud." Kira froze. "You knew her?" "She was Pathfinder before you, the last true one." His eyes grew distant. "She died trying to heal a corruption too deep to reach. Don't make her mistake." "What mistake?" "Loving the kingdom more than she loved herself." He left before she could respond. Aldrich pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her from behind. "Are you all right?" "I don't know. My mother was a Pathfinder?" "We'll find the answers, I promise." Kira leaned back against him, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. "Together?" "Always." Outside, the first stars appeared in the winter sky, and far to the east, Victor prepared his final assault. The attack came at dawn. Not on the castle. Victor was too clever for that. Instead, he struck at the heart of Aldrich's support, attacking 3 major pack territories simultaneously. Reports flooded in faster than they could be processed. Villages burning, alphas slaughtered, children taken as hostages. It was chaos designed to scatter their forces, divide their attention, and break their spirit. Kira stood in the war room surrounded by maps covered in red marks, each one a site of devastation. Aldrich commanded his generals with calm precision, but she could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. "We can't defend everywhere at once," Lyra said, tracing attack vectors. "He's forcing us to choose." "Then we choose none of them." Kira's voice cut through the discussion. "We go straight for Victor." Every head turned toward her. "Explain," Aldrich said. "These attacks are distractions. Victor wants us scattered, weakened, but he's also arrogant. He believes we won't abandon our people to strike at him directly." "Because we won't." Gregor's tone was sharp. We cannot leave innocents to die. We can, if it means ending this war in a single blow. Kira moved to the map, pointing to a mountain range northeast of the kingdom. I can feel Victor's center of power here. It's where he's been corrupting bonds, building his army. If we strike there with our full force, we leave our territories defenseless, another counselor protested. For how long? Kira challenged. How long until Victor wins through attrition? How many more villages must burn before we realize we can't win this war by defending? Silence fell. Aldrich studied the map, his expression unreadable. It's a massive gamble. Yes. If we're wrong, if Victor's center isn't where you think, then I'm wrong, and we die trying. But if I'm right, we end this. Aldrich's eyes met hers across the table. How certain are you? I can feel him. His corruption calls to my gift like poison calls to a healer. I'm certain. He held her gaze for a long moment, weighing everything. His duty, his kingdom, his love. Finally, he turned to his generals. We march at nightfall. Full force. Leave minimal garrison to protect the castle. Protests erupted, but Aldrich's raised hand silenced them. The Pathfinder is right. We cannot win this war by bleeding slowly. Either we strike now with everything we have, or we wait for Victor to choose the time and place of our destruction. Lyra grinned. Finally, a plan worthy of legends. The war room emptied as generals dispersed to prepare their forces. Within hours, the castle transformed into organized chaos, weapons sharpened, armor fitted, supplies packed. Kira retreated to the moon chamber, needing quiet before the storm. She knelt beside the pool, her reflection staring back with eyes that seemed older than they had been weeks ago. The mark on her skin pulsed steadily, responding to the nearness of battle. You're afraid. Aldrich's voice came from behind her. She hadn't heard him enter. Terrified, she admitted. He crossed to her, kneeling at her side. Their reflections merged in the water. King and Pathfinder, two halves of a destined whole. I could order you to stay here, safe behind the castle walls. You could try, but you would disobey. Absolutely. Aldrich smiled, sad and tender. I knew you would say that, which is why I brought you this. He handed her a sword, elegant, perfectly balanced, with a hilt wrapped in silver wire. Runes glowed faintly along the blade. It was my mother's. She was a warrior before she was queen. She would have liked you. Kira took the sword, feeling its weight settle into her hand like it belonged there. Thank you. There's more. Aldrich drew his own blade, holding it horizontally. He pressed his wrist against the edge, drawing blood, then offered the sword to Kira. Blood oath. The oldest binding between alpha and mate. Once forged, it cannot be broken, not by betrayal, not by death. Our souls remain tied until the moon herself fades. Kira stared at the blade, at the blood glistening along its edge. The air between them seemed to freeze, heavy with meaning. If we do this, she said softly, there's no undoing it. I know. And if one of us falls, the other carries the memory, the strength, the love. He lifted the sword, offering it to her with quiet reverence. Share this burden with me, Kira, not as king and pathfinder, as two souls standing before the storm. Her throat tightened. Slowly she drew her own blade, mirrored his movement, and pressed its ruined edge to her wrist. The sting of the cut was sharp but cleansing. By blood, she whispered. By bond, he answered. They pressed their wrists together. Light burst between them, silver and pure, spiraling upward like a living flame. The magic wrapped around their joined hands, sealing the oath. Kira felt his heartbeat merge with hers, his thoughts brushing against her mind like whispers. Home. That was the word that filled her. When the light faded, a faint crescent mark glowed against both their wrists, mirroring the original moon mark. Stronger, unified, Aldrich brushed a strand of hair from her face, wonder and sorrow mingling in his eyes. Whatever happens tomorrow, he touched the mark, will never fade. Kira sheathed her sword. Then let's make sure tomorrow is worth remembering. They left the chamber together, side by side. That night, the army gathered under the lunar eclipse, a blood-red moon casting its glow across the snow. Thousands of wolves stood ready, the quiet hum of anticipation vibrating through the ranks. Kira rode at Aldrich's side, cloak snapping in the wind, the silver mark on her wrist visible beneath her gauntlet. Lyra approached, her wolf eyes glinting. The scouts confirm your vision was right. Victor's stronghold lies beneath the Frostspire cliffs. Magic activity off the charts. Then tonight, Aldrich said, we end him. He turned to his soldiers. For every life he has taken, for every home he has burned, for the moon that will no longer watch in mourning, we ride. The wolves howled as one, and beneath that ancient cry, the two of them shared a final glance. No fear left, no regret, only understanding. The prophecy wasn't about one saving the other. It was about two broken hearts choosing to fight as one. The Frostspire cliffs loomed like the bones of a dead god, jagged, merciless, eternal. Snow fell soundlessly as Aldrich's army advanced, their torches flickering like tiny stars against the dark. The entrance to Victor's stronghold yawned ahead, framed by carved stone wolves with ruby eyes. Kira dismounted. Her boots sank into the snow, and the cold bit deep, but she barely felt it. The mark burned steady under her armor, pulsing with the same rhythm as the man beside her. Stay behind me, Aldrich said. You know I won't. A faint smile touched his lips. I was hoping you'd say that. They moved as one into the cavern. Inside, the air reeked of blood and decay. Chains hung from the ceiling, etched with sigils that writhed in shadow. At the center of the hall, on a throne of bones, sat Victor. So it ends here, Victor said, his voice echoing like distant thunder. The traitor, the king, and their illusion of destiny. It was never illusion, Kira answered. It was choice. Victor rose, power bleeding from him in tendrils of black mist. Choice, he laughed. The moon abandoned us long ago. There is no fate, no mercy, only dominance. Aldrich drew his sword. Then let us see which truth endures. The battle erupted. Magic collided with steel, light against shadow. Aldrich struck with precision, his blade an extension of will and fury. Kira moved with him, channeling power through their bond. Each swing of his sword glowed brighter. Each blow echoed through her veins. Victor countered with darkness that screamed. The fallen wolves he had corrupted rose from the floor, eyes hollow, claws like knives. Kira, Aldrich called. She raised her hands, summoning light from deep within. The markings on her skin exploded in radiance, pushing back the dark tide. The spectral wolves dissolved, howling as they returned to dust. But Victor was relentless. He thrust his blade through the air, and black tendrils lashed toward Aldrich. One struck true, slicing across his chest. He fell to one knee, blood staining the snow-black stone. Kira screamed. The mark on her wrist flared so fiercely the cavern shook. She dropped beside him, her tears glowing silver as they touched his wound. The healing came instinctively, light pouring from her hands, stitching flesh and life back together. Victor's snarl shattered the silence. Pathfinder, your mercy is your weakness. Mercy is power, she whispered. Kira rose. The markings across her body flared brighter than ever before, her hair lifting on unseen wind. The moon's voice echoed faintly in her mind, a song older than language. You were never meant to flee darkness. You were meant to lead it home. Aldrich stood beside her, his wounds closing, their hands joined. Together, they became the union of moon and flame, predator and healer, wrath and grace. They charged. Their combined magic struck Victor with the force of creation reborn. The cavern exploded in light and sound, darkness unraveling in a storm of silver fire. Victor screamed as his corruption burned away, his soul scattering into shards of shadow that vanished on the wind. When the light faded, the throne was gone. The hall was silent. It was over. Kira sank to her knees, trembling, the last of her power leaving her in a wave of exhaustion. Aldrich knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms. "It's done." "No," she whispered, smiling faintly. "It's beginning." Outside, dawn broke over the cliffs, spilling gold across the snow. The army waited in silence, watching as their king and pathfinder emerged. The first rays of sunlight touched Kira's mark, and for the first time in centuries, the symbol burned pure white. Lyra bowed. Then, one by one, every wolf fell to their knees in reverence. Aldrich looked at Kira, awe plain in his gaze. "The moon blesses her daughter again." "Not her daughter," Kira murmured. "Her choice." He smiled, pulling her close. "Then may the kingdom finally learn from its mistakes. And may mercy crown even the fallen." He kissed her beneath the rising sun, sealing their vow not with prophecy, but with rebirth. And when they rode back toward the renewed kingdom, the wind carried a new kind of song, one of forgiveness, strength, and the endless rhythm of two souls rewriting their fate together. If your heart beat alongside ours, like, comment, and subscribe, because every soul that joins our moon keeps the flame of redemption alive. Would you like the next story in this series to follow another pair, a new rejected Omega and a different cursed Alpha King? Or should this world continue directly with Kira and Aldrich's reign?